another episode of PEEPanEIP, an EIP dedicated series where we discuss an Ethereum improvement proposal and understand how it is going to make Ethereum even better. My name is Pooja Ranjan and I'm your host for today's episode on ERCs and application layer standards. ERC is an acronym that stands for Ethereum Request for Comments. ERCs are application level standards for Ethereum and can also include token standard and name registries. To talk more about it, we are joined by Anett Rolikova from the Fellowship of ETH Magicians. She's also leading a working group for NFT Standards. So without further ado, let's welcome Anett.
Thank you, Pooja, for inviting me to this show. I'm really happy to be host in this amazing initiative that Ethereum cat holders are doing in the PEEPanEIP show. And so today I'm going to talk about ERCs and application layer standards.
And this is your first time. Maybe please have a little bit of your introduction, like let us know a little bit more about you, your engagement, and then I believe we have a presentation, so we can dive into that.
Okay, hi all, I'm Anett, and I'm working with ETH Magicians for I think that it will be 2 years already. I have like 2 years anniversary very soon, and I think that in June. And I'm organizing everything around operations, events, councils for Ethereum Magicians, and then I worked with a couple of more Ethereum projects with social media, helped them out with marketing and community. And right now I'm organizing this NFT Standards working group, which is supposed to improve the NFT standards, but I will talk more about that in a second. As this is a topic that I've been digging out the rabbit hole for a couple of weeks already. So I'm looking forward to tell you more about the ERCs.
Thank you very much for the introduction. So would you like to go ahead and start sharing your screen with the presentation?
Can you see my screen? Okay, great. So thank you everybody for joining this session. And so for today, I prepare a little bit of an introduction into the ERCs and the standards. At first, I'm going to start with ERCs. The ERCs is a shortcut for Ethereum request for comments, and it outlines a set of rules and recommendations a Solidity developer must follow when they're creating new ERCs. ERCs are on-chain application layer EIPs, and ERCs are a part of the EIPs, but they are going through improvement as the EIP improvement process group are working on separating the ERCs from EIP repo. But I'm sure that Pooja or cat holders in general have more to talk about this topic, and I'm sure that you will see some sort of announcement very soon if that wasn't published yet. So the EIP stands for Ethereum Improvement Proposals. There are a bunch of categories of EIPs. Those categories are core, interface, networking, meta, informational, and ERCs, which are Ethereum improvements proposals, which are like standards that are implemented on chain and into the Ethereum network. And those network upgrades are happening on a quite regular/irregular basis. And all corridors and with help of cat holders are managing EIPs. So to start with ERCs, I prepared a couple of ERCs that I found the most interesting that are worth to mention. But in general, the difference between EIPs and ERCs, they are very similar, but ERCs are application related, and they are made to improve applications and, for example, wallets or like similar upgrades. So they're not attached to Ethereum core, but they're more of an application layer and touching the dApps and like like this topic. And then EIPs are correlated standards, which are touching the Ethereum network and how are affecting the network itself. But ERCs are more about improving the on-chain standard, but they are improving applications, for example. So to first start off with ERCs, I would like to start with probably one of the most famous standard, which is the ERC20 metadata extension, which is the fungible token standard. And on ERC20 standard are running I think that almost all tokens that are on Ethereum network. And this standard was created in 2015 and is proposing basic functions for smart contract, like basic functionalities like send, receive, check total supply, check if the amount is available to transfer the tokens.
So I wanted to just ask one question, if you don't mind. So in ERC20, as I'm understanding them, are more suggestions than they are requirements. Does every ERC token or ERC20 token follow the ERC20 recommendations like very precisely, or is there like any leeway there?
In generally speaking, ERC standards are very simple standards. So they are just telling the Solidity developers and in general the developers that are working on creating their own application or application to be aware of those rules, and if when they're developing, they're building on the top of the standard itself. So tokens that are on Ethereum network are built on the top of these standards, but as I said, this standard has very basic functions, which those can be extended with extensions that people are building on, and the projects are modifying them.
And why is that important? Like in the sense that, anybody could just kind of publish a standard to, a request for comment or whatever. But like, why do we as Ethereum do like an ERC instead of like do like a whole process for an ERC instead of just like doing like an ETH Magicians post, for example, to like recommend these standards?
Because if you will create yourself, for example, you have a basic standard, and then you will build yourself on the top some sort of extension on this standard. Then this extension is, if it's not proposed as a standard and finalized as EIP, and it didn't went through the network and it wasn't applied to the network itself, then the token standard doesn't have to be composable with the other applications and wallets. So when you are developing standard, the standard have to be universal and universally used and applies to.
So then I guess, as I would understand that, then ERC, like the ERC process is kind of like a consensus gathering process. So you can't just do it like anywhere because you won't have consensus of the Ethereum network. And like the EIP, specifically the subset ERC, is like that process for these standards where you would gather consensus for the standards themselves. Is that about right, do you think?
Yes, the ERCs have so many comments, and a lot of discussion is happening under the ERCs, and even more than under the regular EIPs, because EIPs like standards that are like core, and this is for common, so it's more about like coming with a consensus by commenting, and then like it's more of a collaborative work rather than a single person work. But as I said, those basic standards like ERC 20 and ERC 721 are basic standards where not many people were in the Ethereum back then, so, and like not many cordos and stuff, and like these like higher knowledgeable people. So those are very basic ones that are applied.
So then ERCs tend to be a lot less technical than EIPs, basically. So it's like a lot more accessible for people to comment on and even submit.
Yes, those. The problem with ERCs is that on one side there are many of them, like so many, but there are also so many ERCs that are very complex and doesn't solve much of an issue, or are like complex enough that, you know, if something is like super complex, it doesn't even have their like proper use case, or it have a use case only or makes sense only for like one project. So when ERCs are getting implemented, there have to be like the ERC have to look like great, like very great, in order to be finalized.
Can they be changed after the fact? Like, could we update ERC 20, or would you have to do like an ERC 21, 22, etc. to update?
So ERC 721 is trying to be replaced. I have it also in my slide, by the way. It's trying to be replaced. I think this one, yeah, the ERC 721, the non-fungible standard, is going to be replaced with ERC 1155, which is the multi-token standard. I wouldn't say that it's going to be replaced, but it's like a very complementary standard, because the difference between those both standard ERC 721 and ERC 1155 is that ERC 721 is single token standard and ERC 1155 is multi-token standard, which means that ERC 721 is when you are uploading NFT to the chain, you are creating one single smart contract for every NFT that you are creating. But ERC 1155 means that you are you can put a bunch of NFTs into one smart contract, but those NFTs are like collection or a batch, and they are different. You can differentiate them by token ID. And the ERC 1155 token multi-token standard also introduced atomic swaps, which allows easier token swapping.
So then I guess to kind of build off of that or re-explain it a bit, are you saying that ERC 721 or ERC 1155 is meant to kind of supersede which kind of like to take over for ERC 721 and give it more functionality? So it's kind of like just an update to it, right? It's not necessarily a new standard. It's just a minor change.
A lot of platforms are using both 721 and 1155 standard as well. But there is quite a bit of controversial, the standard itself. But I think that it's made because people just don't understand 1155 yet properly. And sometimes the 1155 is being called the postcard standard, which artist doesn't like much. But I like 1155 because it introduced lower fees, because you can batch more NFTs into one contract, single contract, so it doesn't take cost that much to create an NFT itself.
I guess I'm just trying to focus down on like the actual process of how ERCs work. And so I guess like as I would understand it from what you've told me about 1155 and 721, like ignoring the specific ERCs themselves, like if I were to make an ERC, we'll call it ERC 1 or whatever, and then it does something and then I want to change it or update it, then I would do an ERC2 to like extend that, right?
Yes, and there are quite a lot of ERCs that are basically like extensions to ERC 721, but the 1155 is more of a complementary ERC to 721 rather than a like extension to.
A replacement. So like one other question would be like if people, like if you were to make an ERC and then people didn't want to use it, like would you still be able to use ERC 721?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for answering my question. Sorry.
No worries. So as we were talking with Ali, has the basic functions. Not talking shit. But wrapped ETH is being used quite widely as in tokens. Because the ERC20 is basically like wrapped ETH, and that's how the token basically works. But I found a proposal and I found that the author is working on Ethereum Classic, so I'm not really sure if this ERC is going to be implemented or what's the status with that, but I'm just aware that there is an ERC that is supposed to replace wrapped ETH. So going back to the ERC 721, it is the non-fungible token standard, and it's one of the most popular token standards. This standard was introduced by Dieter Shirley in late 2017, and it got implemented in 2018, which was around the CryptoKitties boom when the ERC got popular. So it is also a super simple token contract because it has very basic token functions. This token standard introduced very rare and unique collectibles, which is used to identify something or someone in a unique way. The ERC 721 as non-fungible is perfect for collectibles, art, lotteries, and it has like very wild usage. So it's usable around many items that doesn't have like direct value in a sense. So on Ethereum, then in a game you have like thousands of items. So what this standard does is assigning token ID to every item, and then it deploys them into one contract. Which if they would want to do with ERC 721, it would be nearly impossible, and especially with the current prices of for gas for transaction, having more than even 10 items in a game would in a contract, and you can like find them and you can like assign them like custom like interface. But with 721 it would be way harder, especially if, imagine it like setting up a computer for every game item with 721, and if you have 1155, then a lot of items would have like one computer, which is like computer, it means that it's like the smart contract that can operate on behalf of the NFT itself or the collectible or the item. Is it clear?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
EIP is still in draft, and it is EIP, not ERC, because it doesn't have the ERC number assigned yet. But it's supposed to be an extension of the 721, and this is just one of the examples of the extension EIPs that we, or ERCs that we was supposed to have unified royalties, and so this is just one of the example. And then I'm going to dig a little bit into security of ERCs, because that is something that I've been doing research for lately. So I was trying to find how to improve security of ERCs or of NFT standards in general, and I found that like how the heck we can even like improve security of ERCs, right? So I found this exploit on the ERC20 contract. Yes, it is a token standard. It is like the fungible token standard, not non-fungible, but I thought that it would be interesting to show you, just because in one line of code, doing, for example, transaction or swap on Uniswap, and you want to swap 100 uni for DAI, then you send 100 uni to Uniswap pool contract, which 100 uni means that you have 4,000 DAI. But if this function will be applied, then the 90% of DAI was supposed to get burned, and then you will receive only 40 DAI. So that's like example of the exploit.
Has that ever been exploited?
I'm not really sure if this was like
Yes.
real exploit.
Yes, he made a ton of money.
Did they get away with it, or did people catch it? I remember that there was an exploit around this.
I wouldn't want to derail the whole conversation. Salmonella really is optimized to work against sandwich bots. So basically, a sandwich attacker will get sandwiched by them. So it depends what you mean by getting away with it, because I mean, it's an exploit that works in a very, very dark forest. I mean, if sandwich people are getting away with it, then perhaps the Salmonella people are getting away with sandwiching the sandwichers.
That makes no sense. But it sounds like a very interesting vulnerability that maybe I'll look up in my free time. I don't know. It sounds cool though. It's a cool name. Salmonella and sandwiches are good names for a bad thing. Anyway, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Anett.
Yeah, no worries. So by the time I was trying to research how to increase the security, and I was talking to the author of Salmonella contract, and like I was trying to wrap my head around like how the Salmonella itself contract works and how to basically improve the security of, let's say, ERC 721 or the new NFT standard that may see the light of the world sometimes. So I was thinking that we can add permits to it, and how this would work, because right now how the ERC 721 works, that after an artist is uploading an NFT to the platform, he's basically, by signing the transaction, he's giving the permissions, the full ownership and permissions for the NFT itself to the platform. And then platform is handling the sale, and after the sale will occur, the platform will transfer the ownership from the platform to the buyer of the NFT itself. And this means basically, if we are going to imagine in real life, it means if you're an artist and you have physical painting, then you will take it to gallery, which means that you don't have the painting anymore and the gallery has it. So the gallery is basically like stealing your artwork and then selling it to the whoever buys it. basically. So I was thinking that this is probably a great vulnerability that we need to tackle. The way how we can tackle is by adding permits, and permits are basically permissions that you sense the approved transaction, which will allow you basically to transfer the ownership from you as an author of the NFT to the buyer itself without handling the ownership to the platform or to the marketplace where you are selling your NFT on. This can work, but the author will need to approve one more transaction after the sale will occur, which I don't think so that it's very hard to do, as I'm sure that artists are watching every bidder and everyone who is like trying to buy their NFT. So and I found out that this would even lower the cost for transactions. So the permits are one idea. And then another idea was multi-sig. This is more of a political kind of idea. And this doesn't have to be standardized. Because, for example, Gnosis Multisig is already supporting NFTs and ERC 721s. So it allows more people or a DAO to have ownership over the NFT, which doesn't have to be standardized, but it was just an idea how to improve security of NFTs itself. But as I was researching more the security, I found out that this is probably a better question even on storage providers. Like quite a lot of NFT marketplaces are starting their NFTs on IPFS or RVAV. So I will definitely have conversations with storage providers to see if the NFTs itself can be stolen, if their metadata can be stolen from storage providers. So yeah. So how would like to improve the new NFT standard? My proposal is to add multi-chain support. Because I believe that the future is multi-chain, and whether we want or not, we will definitely need to have some sort of multi-chain support, because there are already teams that are working on bridges between chains. So I would love to probably create this standard as the first multi-chain standard, which can be, for example, via Moonbeam contract, be applied to Polkadot contracts as well, thanks to Substrate and Moonbeam contracts. Then I would love to add security component and create this standard as a super standard for metadata and adding license. The license is another component that is quite controversial, because it is not meant to be as ERC itself or as a standard itself, but the license is more of a nice to have component, which anyone can decide whether how the NFT can be replicated, whether it can be shared on which social media and similar. I haven't digged much into this license kind of path or like rabbit hole much, but it is quite a lot of about legal stuff and legal related like kind of agreements. So I will definitely look into that more. And just to give myself a little bit of shout out, I made NFT Standards wiki, which is live at nftstandards.wtf. And that's how you can find and track progress of this working group that we are working on. And feel free to get in touch with me if you have any more additional questions or you would like to join the group or contribute. Anyhow, and that's it from me. And I'm sure that William did some sort of research on ERCs as well, so he may tell you something more.
Yeah, sure. I could talk either about like if there's general questions about the ERCs in general, what they're used for, what we're seeing in the ERC space now. Got a few different directions. Alita, you were asking a bunch of questions about ERCs before. Is there something that's still a bit unclear about the process or about what goes into ERCs in general that maybe you could focus on?
No, it's interesting to me that there is like a difference between an EIP and an ERC. And specifically like from like a top level perspective, what's the point of an ERC? I mean, I know it's like to gather consensus for like certain recommended like standards. But kind of like what was the first ERC? When did they start? Was it kind of like evolved from an EIP in general? Like for example, an ERC 20 standard, right? Like token. Can you build a slightly different ERC 20 token?
Okay, sure. So I could definitely, hop into that topic. So first things first, ERCs are EIPs. They're a subset of EIPs. So that might kind of help first understanding them. They're just one category. The two most well-trod categories of the EIPs in general are core, which is kind of like the protocol layer EIPs, and then the ERCs. Now, there is a very big difference, which I think is really at the heart of the first kind of set of questions that you asked, which is that core EIPs are expected to be put into any clients that are canonically being clients for the Ethereum chain, whereas ERCs are kind of like an optional standard, like say HTTP or TLS. Are you allowed to make a website that does not use TLS or SSL? Well, of course, it's not like the SSL ninjas are going to come for you or anything. But if you want to conform to the HTTPS standard, so then there's a standard there for you to conform to. So when we come to something like ERC 20, which I am pretty sure was the first ERC actually, as in the numbers in the ERCs are the EIP numbers for them. And I'm pretty sure ERC 20 was the first ERC. What ERC 20 does is it gives you a set of functions to give you a certain goal. Now, it doesn't even tell you what those functions should have written in them in terms of code, which is how you could have a Viper ERC 20 or a Solidity ERC 20. So long as they have a function called this and a function called that and an event called this and an event called that, then they'll still be an ERC 20. And what you put in those functions is up to you, which is how ERC 20s are so. On top of that, also, you can put in additional functions. You can do additional things. All the ERC 20 is a standard. Now, what the standard does is it allows for an ecosystem to kind of converge on one idea and then make it very easy to integrate with that. Etherscan, for instance, does a lot of wonderful things because it can already make certain assumptions about an ERC 20 contract. It knows it's going to have functions called this, and it'll know exactly what they should be returning. Tools like Uniswap, Balancer, as platforms, they're able to build a platform that could take any generic dog token that someone came up with, because Doge, of course, and it'll work on their platform because balancers, the people making the platform, know exactly what certain functions in that contract are going to look like. So having a standard that an ecosystem converges on is very powerful in terms of that ecosystem being able to make products and anticipate products that are grown inside that same ecosystem.
That makes sense. I don't have anything
Your
else.
notifications
That's a
agree.
really, really great summary, I think, of ERCs and their purpose and kind of like the greater goal. And I guess just to kind of summarize everything a little bit, because we are coming to the end here, is like ERCs are important. Like if I had like a sentence from what I've learned today and like what I would take away from the presentation and everything is that ERCs are important features of the Ethereum network because it allows for us to gain consensus and build standards to build like different things off of. And so it kind of built a lot of opportunity for the network and the people involved in it to make money or build whatever. A subset of like an ERC, for example, would be like the non-fungible token. And then also security is a major concern with these because if you get it wrong, then it can affect like more than you bargained for. Is that
So,
you think?
I would say security is a funny topic when it comes to ERCs, because essentially all they define when you take a look at something like ERC 20 or ERCs 721 and 1155. So that's the basic fungible tokens, and then also the basic non-fungible tokens right there. The funny thing with security is that the standards, all they define is basically what your function needs to be named. Maybe they'll define an event or two, but they won't tell you anything more than that. I mean, as an example, for ERC 20, I don't have the precise list of what's canonically in ERC 20 and what's not off the top of my head, which is one of the reasons why I'm not giving names. Transfer for sure is one of the ones, both transfer with a lowercase t as a function and then with an uppercase t as an event. But theoretically, I could write a contract in which the transfer function, anytime it's called, sends all of the person's assets to me. And it would be called transfer, and it would return a Boolean when it succeeds. And that would conform to the ERC 20 standard because I have a function named transfer. It takes in certain parameters, like it would take in a, in that case, a to address and an amount. But instead of sending those funds to the to address, it would just send all of the person's funds to me instead of the to address because yay. And that still conforms to the standard, because the standard just says you have to have a function called this. It doesn't actually say your function has to do this, that, or the other. In general, this is one of the reasons why when people are interacting with token contracts, they insist on verified code so they can see what code is on the blockchain. Because it's not enough just to know that it's ERC 20 compatible. You have to know what's going on in those functions. The Salmonella guy, for instance, did not verify his contracts because he didn't want anybody seeing that he was gonna be wrecking their bots beforehand. So that should always be just like a red flag off the bat. Like, wait a second, why is this code not verified? But being that it is just a standard, I mean, there are probably ways to do malicious things with SSL also, maybe a poison certificate or something like that. The standard isn't necessarily coming to define all of the different things that could be bad. A better example might be if I have SSL, or not me, but somebody else malicious has SSL on their scam site. So that's not a vulnerability in SSL. Well, what do you mean? The website has HTTPS. Yes, but HTTPS wasn't necessarily trying to stop that. I would say the bigger problem in integrating an ERC 20 wrong generally will be a lack of compatibility. It won't fit in with platforms that are expecting certain functions to behave a certain way. That would be my my kind of take with that. Trying to make standards that are naturally that more naturally stop people from foot gunning themselves, though, is definitely a major topic and one that people put a lot of effort into, because obviously having an interface that at least helps people make the right choices is very, very, very beneficial.
Thank you, William. Thank you, Anett. I mean, these are all good questions. I mean, like the explanation of ERC, it seems very pivotal for people who have just started to learn about it. Thanks so much for bringing up these popular standards which are available for project developers. Just to throw out one fact here, as we were discussing about core EIPs and ERCs, number of ERCs, those are registered on EIPs.ethereum.org on the date, is almost equal to number of core EIPs. That means many people are pushing these things to be a standard. Although I believe the group that you are working with, Anett, maybe will be helpful to push more and more, because the percentage of the ERCs who can attain the final status is really low. Like out of 141 ERCs, only 20 has reached to the final status. So the number is low, people are working more, there are more and more projects coming out. I think that can be something that you might want to look into someday. So you can reach out to these authors and help them push. Other than that, I just want to have something from you. Like, what is the main goal of this working group, the NFT working group?
As I said before, I would love to see increased security of the NFT standards. It may sound that I'm more focused on the art NFTs kind of group or section. Yes, I am, but I would love to explore my views into another fields as well. But as I said, I'm still trying to dig in to this NFT standard and trying to explore different use cases and see where they have usability from the NFT side, definition side. So I'd love to explore more, and then my goal is to create some sort of multi-chain standard. But feel free to reach out to me directly for the Telegram group link, or go to the wiki and contribute whether to the Magicians thread, or there is an actual link to the group, the Telegram group working group. So just introduce yourself there.
That is interesting. So people who are watching us on the YouTube later, you know whom to reach, and I'm going to provide the details of the working group as well as Anett's contact, the Twitter handle, so you can reach her directly with your questions and comments. With that, we have hit the time for this episode today. Thank you once again, Anett and William, Alita, and everyone for making this episode really interesting with a lot of questions. Generally, we discuss either one or two proposals. This was really enlightening to have more than one proposals in one episode. Now we can go one by one and understand in depth if we want to learn more. So do let us know if there is anything specific, if you're interested to learn about. On this note, thanks all our YouTube viewers for watching this episode. Hit like button and share it with people you care about, who are willing to learn more and more about Ethereum improvement proposals or ERCs. ERCs are really important for new developers. They are learning, they are providing a lot of stuff to build a new project. As always, we would love to hear feedback and improvement suggestions. Do let us know which EIP would you like to see in future episodes. See you soon again with another proposal. Till then, stay tuned, keep watching, keep sharing your love with Ethereum cat herders. This is all of us signing out. Thank you, everyone.